They're not jiving around or anything.
Okay, there we go. This
Got
was
used
this
to
was the
them.
position I had to be in to operate my
What
stuff.
was it doing down there?
I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. Okay, so the main thing I want to talk about. Did you get a chance to review this document I sent over?
I did. I think it's still good. There was nothing after a pause of a couple of hours that I would add to it. Seems pretty solid.
Okay, so this would be a Delaware entity. People load up credit on the into the gateway, and then as the credit gets burned, it gets paid out to the contributors.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Software construction. This one I think needs to be. It should be a separate risk-bearing entity. Can also be in Delaware. That clients have so we need a contract that defines the rules of the game, like what the rules of engagement are with this company and who's responsible for what. And then we need a contract for the workers as well.
So, what's specifically the risk that we're hedging against by making that a separate entity?
The client pays money, the work is done, we pay the money out, the client disputes the quality of the work and takes us to court for it.
Right. Which is different with the buyer.
The buyer amounts are typically small enough that it's just credit card chargebacks, basically of a small amount, and it's like, well, okay, here's your money back. Like it's hard to go to court to say, like if you watch Netflix and then you complain later that your monthly subscription, for some reason you need that back because it wasn't worth it or something. That's sort of it's a low value deal and it's sort of an awkward argument. But if you just stumped up $5,000 for some work to be done, and then you felt like the work wasn't of good enough quality or that it was misrepresented, you probably got a case that's worth doing something about.
At the moment, we've got actors who are a superset of buyers, workers, um, and prior art license holders. Now, you can switch between being a buyer, a client, and a worker whenever you want to.
Yeah.
So, how does that get murky?
Sorry?
So,
What's the issue though?
say
Like,
if I'm a client that,
yeah,
or say if I'm a worker
yep,
that contracted with Gateway
yep,
under software construction,
yep,
and then because I've got access to Dreamcatcher Gateway, I look at some software and go, you know what? I'm actually going to buy a license for use of this thing here because that's going to save me a lot of time. Now you're a buyer, but you're be contracting with
oh
the
no,
person
no, no,
who
yeah, no, 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 no,
should
no.
just.
So you don't, or the license for the work done is needs to be GPL'd. Like it's GPL'd work. And so
Uh,
as a worker, you can call on any prior art anytime,
yeah, but they're.
but you're not a
I guess
buyer when
what's
you do that.
the. Um, no, I mean if you are actually genuinely a buyer,
Yeah, you're genuinely a
you're on
buyer.
the gateway and you say, there's this thing quite like that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah,
You
like
go
an,
to that to a different portal, or because there's this license which we talked about last time,
yeah,
which is definitely inside of the software construction piece.
and
Um,
the trading piece.
yeah, yeah. So that's nice and solidly inside of contract world. But then, if as the same person, same actor, you
Yeah.
say, "I'm going to buy this thing,"
Well,
off this platform.
it's not really, you just start using stuff. That's how buying works. You just use it.
Well, yeah, it's offer acceptance is the definition of what we've got there. So, offer acceptance is different from a contract. Well, it certainly is in the UK, and also the offer isn't a contract. So, if someone
Who are
mislabels,
you talking about? Being a buyer, and why does this matter as to how they bought the thing? Like, what's the issue you're trying to
well,
highlight?
I'm trying to think through the legal entity that you're actually doing this with. So,
The buying?
um, the buying, I think, well, at the moment it sounds like a different entity is who you buy from.
Yeah, so they could be the same, they could be the same entity, but I think they're better as a separate one. And so you were asking about, do we give them a different portal? They need a different type of KYC to be the client. So to be the buyer, you don't really need to enter into any kind of, you don't need a contractual agreement with us, and you just need to run through Stripe and be like, here's your credit card, here's what you're signing up for, da da da, go. But as soon as you want to be a client, then Stripe will make you sign up as a different login, because you gotta do a bit more because you're entering into a contract with someone. It's not just consuming stuff.
Yeah, okay. So it's just kind of a tiered thing. So as a
Yeah,
person, I turn up and
yeah, and
I buy something.
we need you to contract with us, because if we don't declare what the contract is, we just drop into the default, which is probably not
Not good.
what we
Yeah.
want. Yeah,
Okay, so as a buyer, I turn up and I buy something,
yep,
and it's T's and C's, offer and acceptance, no contract,
yep,
other than the T's and C's,
yep.
which is our license to use. Then I go, oh, this is quite good. You know what? I'm going to become a client in this. And then it's like, okay, now you need to go through a few more hurdles.
So you
One of
mean,
which is
did you want to buy the thing that was already made, or did you want to improve the thing that you were consuming?
in the first part of that scenario, I just turned up and wanted to use it. A
You
thing.
you wanted to use a thing, and then you liked the thing, and you were like, I want to own a share of the revenue from this thing, so I'm going to try and buy this
For
license.
example. Yeah, that's quite a
Yep.
good example. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's
So when
another
you want to
tier
buy
of
this license,
contract.
there's another entity, which again I think should be separate. And this one is the most contentious of all the entities. It might not be allowed by Stripe, but you would enter into yet another agreement with us, or it was just purely on chain, and then you would make your payment via credit card to make your bid of like what you're offering to pay, and then the if the offerer accepted it, then the thing is yours.
That sounds an awful lot like software construction, where the construction's already done.
Except that the price is bids and asks. It's not predetermined. It's an auction. And there's the dangerous promise of future revenue. And so, in order, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And yeah, right. Okay, so that does sound like it should be a different thing.
Yeah, because the issue is like Stripe frowns on NFTs. Fine. You could argue that what we got isn't an NFT because we're in full control of it. But what if this licenses are on other platforms? Like, what if it's a license that was allocated to an Ethereum holder and it got traded around? You know, that's out of our control. We can't sell an Ethereum's license through this gateway. It needs to have been minted inside this gateway in order for it to be considered first party.
Right, and otherwise it's prior art, and
well, no, otherwise it's a cryptocurrency. And my guess is why they don't like that is because the amount of theft and fraud is rampant, and because you've got no way to claw it back. Like, their business model seems to be based on a low dispute rate, and a lot of their economics falls apart if the dispute rate is quite high. And I think they see that in the NFT space there's a high dispute rate, particularly because the value is wildly speculative. Whereas, like, you know, the price of a banana, you buy a banana, you're not really going to come back and complain that someone sold you a banana for $50, which you thought was exorbitant, and then now the banana won't sell again because it's only worth 50 cents. Like, that's only an issue you have with NFTs and with cryptocurrencies, right? And that's what they want to stay clear of, because I think the dispute rate is just not worth it.
that makes sense. On their side, on our side, we need to steer around.
Are we dead if we don't have this mode? Sort of, right? Because that's why you might do this mode. There must...
Offering bidder is that you got a license I want to, or as a license holder, it's like I want to sell this license for this price, and then someone offers me different price.
What we could do, there's a number of ways to get around it, but one thing we could do is this could be entirely on-chain, and then what you'd do here is when it got constructed, you would have the opportunity to remove, as a one-way move, remove this license from the Stripe chain, and would never allow it back in again. So from Stripe's point of view, you as a client bought it, you paid money for some work to be done, the value exchanged was the work product, and you got this marker to commemorate the work product. You could then withdraw the work product and turn it into an NFT. The thing you bought, you didn't buy the NFT, you bought the work product. The NFT is the residue of the work product. It's like the record of it. Once it's withdrawn, then it's on chain, and then we can do bids and asks for it. And then when we go to buy, when people buy, then we pay out the attribution based on who's on the Stripe chain and what they're holding, and how the ownership record has been modified by the bids and asks market on Ethereum. Right? That sort of sounds like it's not squeaky clean, but it sounds clean enough. Nope, not even clean enough.
I don't know, I'm thinking. So, again, we're not actually selling anything. We're selling rights to the use of something.
At what point? We do several sales. We do 3 different sales. At what?
Yeah, but
which one are you talking about?
All 3 should fall into the same license route. So, I create something without anyone asking me to do it.
Right, so you were a worker with no clients.
Yeah, so you've got the license for that. It's fine. And if people use it, then you get paid through ambient attribution. Okay, happy days. Number 2, clients pay a worker to do something and pay them in full. And the license is then owned by the client that's paid for the work. And then they get ambient attribution.
But but not exclusively. Like, this license would be split between all 3 of them and between the
Yeah,
workers
in,
that
in this
contribute.
diagram, but in a simplified diagram with one client and one
Right,
worker,
right.
and the client pays it in full.
Yep,
So then they own the license, and again, it's ambient attribution that is the money stream.
yep.
Now, when you go to bids and asks, uh, yeah, that's the one that, I mean, you can.
That's the dangerous one, eh?
It is. I'm not sure. You said a few minutes ago that you thought it fell apart without it. I
I
don't think
did.
it does. I just think it's just less of a draw. Because what can you do with your license? Only sell. If you're the primary license holder of a widget, then sure you can give licenses to anyone you want, but you can't realize any of the future capital that may be drawn by the fact that you have the primary license, or even the rights to use it in the UK, for example.
This
Yeah, I don't know
license,
about
this
that.
license is extremely limited. It basically gives you no rights except for the fact that if someone pays on the Dreamcatcher network, then you're gonna get paid something if you hold this license, and that's it. There's
Yeah,
no
yeah,
force. There's no ability for you. It's a piece of GPL software, but this license is your coupon or your ticket that the Dreamcatcher network honors, and that's what a license is.
yeah. I think I'm probably content with what you're saying about the buyer and client worker diagrams.
Okay, but just the trading one, you're a bit.
The trading one feels, uh, feels like a
The trick.
well. Certainly,
All we got to
if we're to
figure
do
out
it,
is
it's got to be a different entity, that's for sure.
because of the
it's like,
risk.
yeah,
Yeah, but then again, so does this one. At the start, what I was thinking we'd do is we'll go to Stripe with all three modes and see what they say, and then adjust things
yeah,
accordingly. Then from there,
yeah. But there's no great harm in the three different entities. It's just a bit more admin, isn't it? But
it is cleaner. Three
yeah,
entities is cleaner.
it is. Okay, so yeah, the buyer and the client worker ones, yeah, sure, that is actually genuinely a different relationship. I guess the bid ask thing is a bit weird because it feels a lot like running a stock exchange,
It is. It is an asset exchange.
and it feels like that is a bad thing to try and mess with.
To put it into
As
Stripe,
in,
yeah. So okay, so you reckon it's best to not even try to why don't to not even try to ask Stripe about that one.
yeah,
We'll just put that on chain, right? So that's the crypto thing.
yeah, yeah, because so if you're to have a bidder offer for the root license for a widget that's on chain, nothing to do with Stripe, then really it's just a matching service, which is an exchange. Saying, okay, so now you've got an agreement, and now you guys need to sort it out. And then when it's sorted out, it triggers. Maybe. I don't know why I'm so queasy about the bidder offer thing. It just seems that we're stepping into a world that neither you nor I are expert in. And the fear of fucking up is quite high on this one for me. Definitely, it's got should have nothing to do with the legal entities of the two above.
Yeah, if there was legal trouble, it would be this one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Sounds like you're generally in agreement. I don't
Yep.
know what else to drill on with this.
I think I don't think there's any harm in raising it with Stripe, because yesterday you were saying that they were quite groovy
Yeah,
guys, and it's like bringing stuff.
yeah,
It's like, hey, here's what we're thinking, and oh, by the way, just while we're here,
yeah, yeah. We'll see how we go
what
with
about
that.
this bit?
Yeah.
Um,
All right. So then the investment vehicle that we raise for. Now we want to do acquisitions of small businesses. It doesn't feel like it's part of this vehicle. It feels like the investment vehicle we raise for is for building software. And so it acts as a client to the Stripe gateway in order to become a contributor. And it also may try to buy things, but again, if there's regulation that stops that, that's fine. Its value is the licenses it holds.
yes.
Okay. What should we call it?
It's a descriptor investment vehicle.
Shall we just register it in Delaware? Put
Yeah,
us two as
just
the
call
officers,
yeah, SCOM, whatever.
and then we just
Doesn't really matter what it's called.
yeah,
In this case,
and then
It
we
is
raise some
an
capital
investment.
into it, and then sort of off we go, right?
Yeah.
Does it sound like the kind of thing that would do well in a crowdfunding campaign?
Yes, it probably would. I think it because there's lots of moving parts here legally. I think going at sophisticated investors would be quite a long time to address this, because not even at this at the legal level, it's like, yeah, they're going to have to really think about this. It's like, okay. And the second thing is at the technical level, and then there's the, a contraction and all that kind of thing. Feels like it would take a long time unless you got someone who's just like going for a punt. Whereas on crowdfunding, they're unsophisticated, generally speaking,
That's rude.
investors. That's not
That's
not
rude.
a thing, but it's just a technical term. And so it's like, well, read it, and if you make a decision, that's fine. But
Okay.
the due deal on the whole thing for big investment would be interesting experience.
Right, and then this is the thing that we'll aim to list publicly, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, where is and how is the method of acquiring small companies?
Surely that's a different thing, because acquiring small companies, the reason we're doing that is because we're going to be using JITs built on Dreamcatcher as a commercial advantage. So it's like a completely different thing.
Could that be the same company that just acts as a client, or is it just easier to? The money would come in faster from the investment vehicle thing, that's for sure.
Well, it actually might be simpler if we headline on the M&A thing. So the investment vehicle, for example, if we headline with, we're doing M&As. Okay, so how are you going to build value? We're building value because the software that's going to reduce their costs and improve their performance, we can control through this client worker model, and we can get it produced sooner, faster, better.
So should we be launching with the acquisitions model first or second?
Feels like it first. I don't know. What do you think? Feels like that is a more tangible thing, because at the end of the day, the investment isn't in whether this whole thing works. It's whether the acquisition increases in value. They're saying, well, they would ask, what's your plan? Our plan is do all this and increase in value. Um, but at the end of the day, you've still got the assets. So it feels from the investment, from a sophisticated investor's point of view, M&A seems the better angle to go in at, and the crowdfunding seems to flip.
So who's going to build the Dreamcatcher, or the core bits of software that we know need to be built out? Where does the money for that come from?
Usage. If we've got an investor with M&A, so we get a chunk of cash through M&A. It's like, right, okay, so here's the first acquisition. You're going to build a whole bunch of jitters, and you're going to get usage on the Dreamcatcher, and that usage pays for improvements in the future. Will be the first or one of two streams cash. And the second one is, well, okay, let's do crowdfunding because people want this to be built, and that's a different operation. That's a different thing.
I think we might. Yeah, it sounds like we need to do the pure software thing first, and then, crowdfunding, that one seems easy, and then keep a private company that we don't really advertise much. That is the acquisitions vehicle.
Yeah,
and then we'll raise from a small number of people to go into that, and then
because we could instead of M&A on brick and mortar companies, could also choose to set up an investment vehicle looking at I don't know, digital resources, or buying in websites and making them defunct and turning them into bots. There's a whole bunch of things there, but it's nothing to do with the Dreamcatcher core. The Dreamcatcher core is what it is.
Yeah, right. So Dreamcatcher core feels like there should be an entity that specializes in the Dreamcatcher core. That entity might also be able to engage with clients that want things done, like, if a university comes and says, how can we implement the Dreamcatcher and blah blah blah, we need to be able to hold external relationships, or that company would be like Consensus is for Ethereum. It's a consulting company, but it also pours money into Ethereum code.
Yeah, right. And that company is the substrate on which the network is born. So if you remember what we're talking about in terms of the dispersal event and the upstream pricing and buyer going, I buy that, and the dispersal event then downstream is we need to show that we're at arm's length from the network. The gateway is not the network, but the gateway has some kind of governance influence to make sure that the network doesn't go off in the wrong direction. And we've audited the network and passed through, that audit as something that we're happy with, and then someone could decide whether they're happy with the fact that we're happy with it. So it does feel like a different thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, because this entity here could very well have relationships or contracts with the outside world. Like, you agree to deliver an oil and gas reconciliation system, for example. It makes whatever terms are required, and then it uses its money, its working capital, to leverage the network to solve the problem.
Yep.
That seems like a legitimate operation for the investment vehicle, right?
Yeah, precisely.
Okay, all right. Well, is there anything else you want to say on this, or should we just go ahead and do it?
I think the next step would be to talk to Stripe.
Yeah.
Not spook the horses with them.
Yeah. All right. So I'll go to Stripe. I'll go to Stripe with just. I'll go to Stripe with just this first one, and see what they say.
Put that first one in.
Yeah.
I doubt if they're going to have any problem with that at all.
Yep. Okay.
And then say, oh, while you're on the phone, there's a couple others. There's this construction
Well,
thing.
we might just get registered and approved to do this one first, and then at least we're standing, and then we'll do the second one again. The key seems to be is that will Stripe be okay if these ratio splits are held somewhere remote? That's really the only question. And the more I talk about it, the more it sounds like a pretty reasonable thing to ask. It's like, if, for example, this table was stored on an Ethereum ledger and it was able to be updated by activity on Ethereum, then what's wrong with paying out the money to that ledger, provided that every single contributor has to pass KYC to be able to withdraw their fiat money? The split calculation seems independent. Like, it doesn't seem to matter how it was calculated, so long as there's some reasonable logic to it.
Yeah, and I don't see any problem with that at all.
It sounds alright.
They really shouldn't care, because everyone interacting with the gateway, and therefore Stripe, is known to them.
And then this one, you could. That one seems perfectly fine if it all stayed within Stripe's network. Even the trading seems okay, so long as it was like only between the original participants. For example, as soon as you allow a brand new buyer to come in and purchase a license, that's where the trouble starts, I think. But this should allow you to produce the work product and then mint yourself an NFT on the Ethereum blockchain, which then contributes to how this table is constructed. And then on the Ethereum chain, that's where you do the bids and asks market. And, at any given moment in time, whatever the contributor ledger says, that's how we're going to calculate the payout. So,
yeah, I see no problem with that, because when you're minting, the only thing that would need in place is, say if you went off and minted an NFT somewhere else, you would need some way of referring back to the hash, the state change that you're talking about. And that's all you need. You don't have to make an NFT.
I'm sort of, as long as yeah. Yep. There's a way to say this that keeps it clean, actually. Okay, well, yeah, so I'll start the process of talking to Stripe about getting this set up. Yeah. We'll register an entity in Delaware, and then we'll put our Stripe account up to be traded with, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And this might turn out to actually be much more simple, depending on what they care about.
That'd be a first, but I'd love it if they did.
Well, if we keep away from using the word NFT,
yeah,
which absolutely can be off system, but then I could, take a photograph and put that as an NFT, for my dog.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think so long as we're very clear that we aren't selling the NFTs, we're not trading the NFTs, but the NFTs get minted as a side effect of successfully producing work. They're almost like commemorative in nature.
Well, we don't even have to mint the NFTs. We could. But the important thing is the hash that's linked through your identity.
It needs to be an NFT in order to be tradable.
Yeah, but what does that add?
Tradable?
No, tradable. No. You can. I could trade you a license of something that I can prove I own. It doesn't have to be an NFT.
Right.
So I could through GitHub right now saying, well, through their permission system, I own this repo. I'm going to sell you a license of this, and if asked, I'll link that license through an NFT. That's all fine. But if asked, I can prove that I had the right to sell you the license of which the NFT is a representation.
Okay, and what's the case you're making about that?
Meaning that NFTs are not necessary or sufficient in order to trade. NFTs are just a representation of a license.
If we don't mint them as NFTs on the Ethereum blockchain, it seems it will be difficult to make them tradable.
Yeah, that's a different thing, because once they become NFTs, there's lots of NFT markets. Even that whole kind of tradable part, we could just offload someone else who can worry about the legals.
Well, no, it's our problem, because we're planning to pay out in consumption mode. We're planning to pay out to whoever's holding the NFT at any given point in time.
Yeah,
right? So that's an issue.
But we hold safe. If you're just talking hashes, I've created a widget, and I can prove that I created that widget. I sell that license to someone else. Money comes in a dispersal event. Whoever holds that license, depending on the wording of the license, of course, say it's 100% pass-through, goes to the holder of that license. Now, I think what Stripe will be curious about is like, well, if there is a dispute, because you're saying that they want low disputes, if the platform doesn't pay out through that license that's been sold to someone else, who do they go after? Well, it's not Stripe. It would be the ambient attribution has paid out to the wrong person, say.
True. That's a good example. So, right. And then what if someone steals my wallet, and then I come back and I'm like, this NFT, someone sold me this thing and it's a dud and I lost it. So, what's the issue though? Like, if it's on Ethereum, it's like the Wild West. It's like, so what? Sorry.
Yeah, it's right. It's like it's an arm's length, and all that we need to do is to have that that proof of history, saying,
right,
here's the guy who created it. Therefore,
right. Because okay, so if we just back off from trying to push the tradability onto Stripe, because it is contentious. It's a hotly contentious thing anyway.
Yeah.
And then we just stick to the fact that when work product is finalized and client funds are released or dispersed, at that point we mint an NFT that can be used to trade, to rearrange the target of ambient attribution, but you need to trade it. You can only trade it using crypto because it's the Wild West. Buyer beware. All that stuff.
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm saying on system, all we're doing is tracking what the provenance of a widget was.
Yep.
And at this point, which licenses have been sold and who the beneficial owner of that license is.
Who's the beneficial owner? That's all.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now you can take that and stick it on an NFT platform and trade as much as you want. That's fine, because when you come to claim your cash, all you got to do is to prove to us through the identity system that you're the beneficial owner. Owner.
If you can prove that you own the NFT, then you can sign up to the Stripe KYC thing and receive the cash off the platform, right?
Yeah. But the NFT is at arm's length. Really, what we're just talking about is beneficial ownership of a license. That's it.
All right.
I think it's quite helpful. I've been thinking about this yesterday. It's quite helpful to think about it in terms of, say, I was a recording artist, and I wanted to sell the license for my latest song in Europe to one company, in US to another. I still own the song, but I've transferred all rights, in the geographic limits of Europe and the US. I get paid for money that's coming in from that, but the license holders, depending on what the license says, they get paid as well. Oh, I need to plug in. Why am I running out of battery?
It's been an ongoing thing for you, buddy.
Hold a second, I'm plugged in. Or am I? No, I'm not actually plugged in. Oh boy.
Hey, get over to... Leave my computer alone, buddy.
Was that? Get into your personal space.
Very much. Okay, so, and private software. What if there's a problem that comes up and the client wants to say, I want to do some private work? How does that work in this license world?
Yeah, but what do you mean by private in this case?
Well,
What is private?
what is private? Private means it's not going to be GPL'd. It's not going to be reusable by buyers.
Mhm.
It's just for me.
Okay, and what's the issue that you're
Well,
asking a question about?
how does ambient attribution work in that scenario?
Well, it's just a non-tradable license.
Is
It's a
ambient
private
attribution, well, what does the worker get if they do this work and it's under the agreement that it's private?
license.
Do they
If
still get a
it's,
license?
Yeah, they get a license. So,
But the contents
um,
is hidden. They can't,
well, it can't be reused by anyone else because it's private.
so it can't be
So,
traded.
right. So, for example, if a client comes in saying, right, I'm going to pay you this to do that and create this widget, and I'm going to pay you half what it really should be worth. So,
It's
I have
basically
license,
no.
you have the other half.
It's basically
Right.
no license.
Yeah,
What's the point of a license in that point? In that case,
there isn't one. It's like stops dead at that point.
okay,
It's like,
all right. And so the workers know that that's the deal, and the clients are putting up the money in privacy. The software
never going to
comes
be
out.
duped, never going to be reused. It's just is what it is.
Right.
But whatever comes in for its usage from the private client, say it's one person using this.
Right. So how do I then
is good.
convert from something that I held that was private to make it public and therefore have a license?
You need to. That's fine as well. All that requires
Because we've got the provenance of the work, so we could just
yeah.
liven it
that
up.
The license owner owns the work and can keep it private. In fact, private is almost by default, isn't it? If you don't do anything with it, it's a private license. And the only
We just
person who can
meant
do
it.
something with it is yours. So,
Yeah, it doesn't. It sounds a little complex, but it doesn't sound impossible. You toggle a switch, and then suddenly it's now tradable, or
Right.
mintable, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. If I wanted to sell you the license for me singing into a microphone, and saying I'm really embarrassed by that, you can't sell that license on, then that'd be part of that license. So in order to make that now public, you'd have to be able to agree that there's a change of license. It's like, well, actually, maybe the license has terms in there saying, if you want to make this public, you need to get my permission. And that'd be it. And then once it's public, it's gone. You can do slices and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So, yeah, it sounds almost like the private license is by default.
Yeah, we can debate that later.
Okay, but yeah, I don't see any problems with private licenses.
Okay. When we mint the NFT, we're gonna need to delay it by. In fact, better yet, we should make people have to pay. Like if you participated in a work product and you want to convert your license into an NFT, you should have to pay in Ethereum to do that.
Yeah, because remember that's at arm's length, right? So by
Mm.
mint NFT, really what you're talking about is putting it on the Ethereum chain.
Yeah, which makes it tradable, and
Right.
what it should do is once the chargeback period has ended, so that there's no way that a client can dispute the work product. Only then does it
Right.
become
That
mintable on off chain.
that sounds a lot like an independent service, a non-core independent service,
Yeah,
um, which is I can prove my identity, number one, and therefore I can prove my ownership of the widget
yep,
and the right to give licenses.
right.
And I'm going to go to the NFT gateway and saying I'd like to mint an NFT on the
Right.
Ethereum chain, and you're going to go, oh, okay, I'm going to have to pay for that. Okay, fine. Yeah,
And then it means that we're not selling NFTs directly, we're simply charging the minting cost.
right,
And that's
right.
all.
And
We're not
maybe a
selling.
transaction fee if someone, if it gets sold around and ends up somewhere random, I put it by, and someone says, right, I'm going to pool the value that I'm owed for owning this NFT, then
Yep.
that goes through the NFT gateway again, saying prove your ownership. Bang.
Yeah.
Yep, happy with that. Right, now we're back in Dreamcatcher land. Okay, so we've got this pot inside the gateway that's been
Right.
approved
Now,
for this
if
license.
okay, so here's the scenario that's problematic.
Mm-hmm.
A worker participates in work product. They mint an NFT. It goes on the Ethereum chain. They then sell it to Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda sells it to North Korea, and North Korea sells it to Vladimir Putin himself. Then Vladimir Putin sells it to some poor guy in Wisconsin who had no idea and was just a regular guy living his life. The Wisconsin guy comes to our platform and says, "Hey, I see there's been a significant amount of usage accrued against this NFT against this license that no one has claimed. Here is my KYC docs. This is my ownership. Pay me out." Did anything happen that was wrong there?
I can only think of one thing off the top of my head. And the one thing is if the license for the widget that's produced was subject to any kind of trade barriers, if it was a state secret like crypto,
Sanction.
yeah. So if it was a piece of crypto software that was produced,
No,
independently, there's another law.
that's not the scenario. That falls under the content management and copyright infringement requirement that we have to make sure that none of the Stripe payments purchase things that are infringing copyright laws or state secrets or anything like that. So that's
Yeah,
a separate obligation of ours.
it is, but something actually we should maybe think about, and I'll come back to your original question in a second, but just noting to self, because there are laws in certain countries about the exportation of digital assets, and it
Yep.
sounds a lot like if you created a piece of software to break the nuclear codes.
This
in that-
license
that line.
doesn't give you anything special about the software. It's GPL software. It's available.
Yes. Oh, yeah, yes. Of course. It just gives you the rights of beneficial ownership, not for usage.
It gives you the right
So I
to
might
be
never
paid.
Yeah. It was a different question. Okay.
Okay,
Is there
so back to
anything
my
wrong with
original
that?
question. Yep.
Anything wrong in that? Well, other than the moral stance of passing through a group of people and countries that you never want to do anything about. Is there anything that would stop, for example, Vladimir Putin right now buying Microsoft Word, which is the license?
Yes, he's on the sanctions list.
So sanctions might be a problem. What, I don't know enough
But
about sanctions.
yeah, but the NFT the NFTs on Ethereum aren't subject to sanctions, or if they are,
No. But again, no, he's got beneficial ownership. Well, actually, okay.
we can't pay him. So he can't come to our platform and get paid out in Stripe. No one will let him do that. But
Mm.
if the NFT ends up in the hands of someone else, is it our business to know about the chain of ownership of that NFT and everyone who owned it in between if the only person that's getting paid
No,
out
I don't
to
think
had
so.
to pass KYC?
Uh,
Not
yeah,
really, right?
it's the payout is. Do you know who's getting cash?
Yes.
It's like, yeah, is this dude, unaware of the whole chain of
Right, I know. And but
ownership?
then the question is,
Yeah.
do you know why he's getting the cash, or do you know how he came to own that license? And we're like, well, it passed through all these Ethereum addresses, and it may or may not have been exchanged for value along the way.
Yeah, but
Does that
isn't this
matter?
why? No, isn't this why it's better to hand off to the whole NFT Wild West?
Yeah,
And all we're
yeah, yeah.
all we're doing
But
is
that the
if we
only
turned
issue
up.
the issue I'm raising is that if yes, handing it off to the NFT Wild West sounds like the only option we can do,
Mm,
and I like that it's a nice sort of distant connection to it. It makes us crypto, but not crypto because
yeah,
we're doing business in fiat, and
crypto
then
friendly. Yeah,
the back door is crypto.
yeah.
But um, when the issue is when it comes to payout,
Mm.
like all the KYC checks would have been done for paying out, right? So are Stripe okay with us basically honoring a ledger that was stored in the Wild West?
I don't see an argument off the top of my head if the license was transferred in full. If Vlad decided to subdivide the license at the end of this chain and sell it back partially to him, to the US guy, maybe that feels like
Well, he's
what
still
they're
gotta
doing. But it's
you
still at the
still gotta
payment. It's still at the point of payment. It's like, do you
at the
know who you're paying out to?
yes, we
I think that
absolutely
just
do.
grounds it. Yeah. So you can't get money out of it. You can't be a beneficial owner
Because it wouldn't be
of
so
anything.
different to like if someone gives me $100 bill, like I don't know where that's been in between. Like
Right.
it could have been anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. It's probably covered in cocaine and all sorts of things that you really don't want to know about as you hand it over and buy your
Right.
latte. Um,
All right.
so,
Well,
because the grounding event, the real world event, is as a beneficial owner, I'm proving my identity against a pot that you guys in the gateway have been accruing. Please pay me. And Stripe knows, right, okay, you've KYC'd. Brilliant. Or, Vlad, you know that's wrong. Okay, we can't do that because he's not KYC'd. So the pot just continues to accrue, just sits there. Now, he can go and trade all the way through as much as he wants. He's never going to get paid out because there's no KYC and he's subject to sanctions.
yeah.
So it seems like it's that pay out thing. So if we state very clearly that the gateway will only pay out to the beneficial owner of the license if that beneficial owner is identified under KYC.
Yep. Well, that's Stripe's rules, so that's taken care of.
Yeah, it's an interesting one though. But no, I can't see a problem with that, even though morally and ethically, etc. But
Yeah, but
hey,
that's the
trade
problem
it
with
amongst yourselves, guys. You
that's
never
the
get any
problem
cash
with
from it.
crypto,
Yeah.
right? You can't control who holds the money or what it got used for, which was touted
But
as a feature.
the thing is, let's say in that scenario of transactions moving this license around, there is the pot's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So therefore, when North Korea trades to Russia, the value of the trade is actually the value of the asset, the license has gone up because they can see how much this license is worth. Okay, that's fine, but that's off system. That's a transaction between individuals in Ethereum world. Yeah, you guys sort it out amongst yourselves. Nothing to do with us. all we're interested in is when someone comes and says, "That's my pot," and go, "Why?" etc., etc. This is my proof of ownership. We don't care what it trades if it's trading on Ethereum.
So long as it was only one way, like you couldn't take an NFT, then put it onto the platform and then use Stripe to buy it off someone else, then so long as we're still within our ecosystem, someone should be able to buy this license, so long as it's never left and been minted into an NFT. If it's just sitting there on our platform, unethereumed, it seems legit that you should be able to offer some money for it and buy it.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Under Scots law, I know this is not worldwide at all, but under Scots law, I could trade you the photo of my dogs, the license to use that worldwide, by writing it in my own handwriting, signing it, and then getting it notarized by an independent person, and then handing you a piece of paper. It's like, well, fine, now you've got the right to use it. And you could challenge it, because here's a piece of paper, signed and notarized. Go to court.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. All right. Well, why don't I just?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
I'll try that whole model with Stripe,
Yeah,
but just one notch at a time.
yeah. And the important thing is, don't use NFTs ever inside of describing the system.
Well, what do you call it when you mint an NFT and put it on the Ethereum chain? Do we want to say that we actually don't support that, and then we'll add that in later?
It's an NFT minting service that someone may construct on it, but it's a handoff. All it's doing is doing the
So that
wiring.
legitimate entity would use Stripe to buy the licenses inside of our ecosystem. They would hold them in trust, and then they would mint them on Ethereum and allow them to be traded.
Yep. And then say it's like bearer bonds, isn't it? It's like, if you prove you can, you're the owner of this, then fine. When you come,
Right, and then because
claim the
that
pots.
service could even say, we're going to KYC ourselves and we're going to claim all the royalties, and then we're going to convert it into Ethereum and pay out the holders on the Ethereum chain.
Sure. And again, that's nothing to do with us. You know, they could take all those royalties or the slice or whatever they want to do into Stripe, and then transfer Stripe to Dodgy Bank in Panama.
Okay. So that means that we should launch with presenting to Stripe the bids and asks feature, but it will have nothing to do with any cryptocurrency, and it will only be operated within our closed ecosystem, so that you can only bid or ask on a license that was created within the Stripe network.
Yep. And when you cash out, you've got to prove yourself as the beneficial owner inside the network. That's trivial.
Yeah.
Outside, there may be a gateway built up. We'll need to make sure that we're happy with, how the
Right.
gateway
So
works.
in the case
Or
of,
something else.
and look, I'm sorry to just laboriously go through so many scenarios
No,
here.
not at all. No.
Pull the
I've
ripcord
got
if
one
you-
question after this as well. but
Yeah,
go for it.
just be like, I'm sick of this game if you want to move on. If there is a stuck that is put up for solving, and some clients come in via Stripe, another bunch of clients come in via Ethereum, all the funding.
How would they do that?
Well, the
Ethereum
stuck is published on the Dreamcatcher network. It's not. It's irrelevant whether it's in Stripe land or Ethereum land, and so because the stuck is a hash-based entity, it's like a piece of immutable data, and then if people escrow funds against it, either in the client model using Stripe or against an Ethereum smart contract, which we have written, by the way, so we can deploy that pretty easily,
Mm-hmm.
then what happens is that when the work product is produced and the funds are released, the workers end up with the work management system tracks who the workers are. So all you got to do to get your funds is prove that you're the worker, and if you want to withdraw Stripe funds, you go through the Stripe KYC. If you want to withdraw Ethereum funds, you need to attach your Ethereum wallet and click withdraw.
Yeah, yeah, and it might be fractional, but we don't do exchange. So
We don't do exchange. No, that's not.
yeah,
The Dreamcatcher platform can connect to many different kinds of wallets all around the world, and we, the Stripe gateway, only supply Stripe products, and
yeah,
the money never mingles.
right. And then if there's a piece of work as a worker that you want to do, and some of the clients want to pay in ETH, others want to pay in dollars, you're going to need to sign up to the ETH gateway. It's a different
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then you can deal with making it into fiat, or maybe not. Maybe you know
Yep.
go wild on the exchange market in crypto.
Yep. So,
You know,
what
it's
was your
not a problem.
question that you had?
No, that's actually answered it. The well, no, actually, it hasn't quite. Um, it's not a question, really. It's just an observation that we, in allowing that, I think we probably should spend a bit more time thinking about the potential moral hazard that there is a loop in here, and we can get some bots in to model this. That there's a loop in that whole thing for money laundering, or bad things to happen, because um, I think there isn't, but we need to be careful that, because it's convoluted enough, it's starting to feel a bit like, is this one of these multi-company networks that people hide money in? So it's just an observation. It's not really a question. Um, once it's written, then I'll get a bot up to model different money laundering possibilities through it, and see if we need to plug any ports to stop the egregious ones. Yeah, that's mostly for note to self on that one. That's not yet. We don't need to do that. Well, we can't do it yet until we build it. That ETH gateway. We don't have to worry about it until then, because it's all us up to that point, and it's always KYC on the Stripe gateway. Okay. Sorry. That felt like a lot when I was talking to myself, but I was actually talking to myself.
Well, I was busy
Yeah.
doing what you just suggested.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it.
So someone would buy a rare license that doesn't get used much. They would buy it for like $1. They'd offer it for sale for 100. The money launderer comes in, buys it for 100, and then they go back to selling it for $1. But what they've done is they've moved money from party A to party B.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, because the value of the thing is able to be so wildly fluctuated legitimately, that's what makes it That's what makes it bad, right?
That's what makes it open to abuse, because if you can manipulate value by having two actors
Right.
in
So
cahoots.
how does eBay stop someone listing, you know, a listing a peanut for $1 million is one example, or the other example is listing products that aren't there, and then a collaborator buys them for a large amount, gives them a 5-star review, and now money's moved.
Um, I don't think they do. I think they've got. I remember reading an article on this on money laundering through eBay, and I think it's a real problem for them. And their policy, at least a couple of years ago, when I read it,
Right.
was something like waiting for the community to point out to them something that looks a bit odd. But
Right.
that was about it.
That's awkward. Okay, well, let's
Yeah.
not get tangled up in that. But I would have thought that if they charge, like, if we charged a high fee for trading, like 25%, that's not a good money laundering opportunity at that point, right?
Well, money launderer. Okay, so the best way. Yeah, so this is okay for the recording. In the UK, the best way to money launder in the UK, for anyone who wants to know, is you set up a massage parlor in London. Boom. And then you put out a couple massages, and suddenly that thing is turning over 20 million a year. That's not looked at. So, but the person who sets up the massage parlor is the launderer,
Right.
and it seems that they're really only taking about 1 or 2% of that. Now, if you make it, a larger amount, then there are easier ways to go, and so, like diverting water, they'll just go somewhere else because it's like, that's too expensive. Whereas, if you're actually trading properly, then you wouldn't mind 5%. Like,
So, right. So we could easily fix that by making sure that
we're more expensive than the next easy option.
no, that's not maybe, but we could also put in some safeguards that don't only allow a price that's within some sort of standard calculation based on its usage. So we're like, you can't, you can only sell one of these licenses for $1,000 if over the next 1 year period or the previous 1 year period, it looks like they would have earned that much money.
We certainly set. It would be fairly trivial to set like red flags. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's like this peanut. Honestly, license to use a peanut. It's not even the ownership of the peanut. It's a license to.
Yeah, but if someone, I mean, if someone really set their mind to it, they could probably make that almost indeterminable. However, if it's all like credit card to credit card, I don't know how you launder money when it's official on both ends.
As soon as you get to the credit card world, you can't do it. KYC.
Yeah, well,
which is why it's there.
right. So the buyers, they'd be consuming, but they're also always consuming a whole range of different. Like the buyers buy with a credit card, and the contributors get paid out via Stripe.
No, that's a brilliant point. Sorry, go on. Go ahead.
So I don't know where the laundering is. Like, don't you need? I don't know how.
You got to pay cash. You got to pay cash at the start.
Yeah.
Which is why massage parlor, everyone pays cash. Happy days. But it's if the only way you can consume is through credit card, therefore KYC, it's pointless. Who's going to be the patsy? Because their name's going to be writ large all over it. So they can't possibly money launder it. They can do it off chain, off system, but that's Ethereum world, which is basically cash. Not quite.
Hey, here's a good idea. You could Ponzi scheme the investment vehicle. Like, say you took in 100 grand, you got some work product made, which was largely false, but no one really knew, and then you paid for the own consumption to make it
Yeah.
look like it was gonna keep on going, like keep on growing, and then you use that to get more money invested, which you do the same trick again, and so you're paying your own consumption to make yourself look good and draw on further investment.
Yeah, sure, you could do that, but why wouldn't you do that? Is because, well, number one, um, if that consumption is all in the system,
You're burning a lot
and
of AI credits, right? Like,
right, yeah, and it's all recorded, and so anyone who wants to point at that information can do so. But also, you could do the same thing with the website, right? You could hire 20,000 people to hammer out a website and buy stuff and pretend to ship it, but don't actually ship it, and then sell the website.
it's not a bad idea.
So it's basically the same thing, but the difference being all the transactions are there for everyone to see.
Right, right. Yeah, okay. All right, well,
All right,
look, I
okay.
mean,
I
it
think we've
feels
done
like
that.
it's pretty solid. I mean, crumbs.
It does. I'd
So,
be
just
really
again,
curious about Stripe's
right,
feedback, but yeah, sorry.
we're
Go
gonna
ahead.
stay away from the crypto thing, right? Like, we'll go for trading, but it's only within the closed ecosystem within Stripe.
Yeah,
And then
will allow you to then take it into another platform that can deal with all that kind of nonsense. But on the
so you
special
could,
event,
right, so
you need KYC.
right, so
Otherwise, it won't work out.
you can mint an NFT that represents this license, but at that point it's out of our hands and you deal with it.
Yeah,
We don't make any margin on the minting of it. You just pay your base costs. We'll simply mark that as off our records. It's your problem, but we'll
yeah,
continue to pay out or accrue to whoever's holding it at the time can come,
yeah,
but they still got to pass KYC to draw the money down.
yeah.
That sounds sort of okay.
It does, doesn't it?
Okay, well, our features, we're not losing anything then. We've got all of our features at that point.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, sweet. Um, okay. Naming the work product. I guess it doesn't matter. It's probably best named as work product, right?
Yes. Oh, I haven't done that yet. Right. Take that as a note. So
Because
it's now a work product. The thing, the widget, I've been calling it.
the widget, yeah, I wanted to call it artifacts, but the thing I learned is that if we go through Upwork's legal dictionary, we can find their definitions,
Mm-hmm.
and understand, um, yeah, understand what they call things. And work product is a standard thing. Like, you can bet that they would have labored hard
Oh yeah,
over
you want
these
to bet.
terms, and it's withstood the test of time and all kinds of scammers. And so if we just use their terms, they save us a huge amount of effort.
So what I suggest is then I can stick it through the bot and map their definitions to ours and see which concepts are similar,
Mm.
and
And
then work
yeah,
back from it.
yeah. See how they've got Escrow Inc., Upwork Escrow Inc. This is why they deal with escrow as a very special case for them. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
is genuine escrow, but their business model seems to be they don't want anything to do with the work product itself. They just
Mm-hmm.
want to manage the introduction and claim a fee for that. So, but what Leon pointed out to me was that they have some extra option that lets you pay a little bit more, and then the the work product becomes available to anyone to use for a fee or something like that, which sounds a lot like what we're
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
I haven't been able to find it yet, what he's meaning there, but it'll be in here somewhere. But the main benefit I saw was if we learn these terms and get familiar with it, that's probably a lot of our difficulty handled,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll be able to talk in a language that Stripe is comfortable with as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. That shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah.
That's an Upwork legal. Okay. Just take a note of that.
Yeah, I sent that link through to you, so you should be able to find it just fine. Features of the dream capture, Leron did something super useful, which is that he took the features and he took the features and he broke them out in terms of a timeline and what was involved in each one to make it, which I thought was an interesting way to look at the problem. Yeah, I don't know what to do about that because it seems like it's a strange problem because we're patching everything together. So that's kind of the issue. Have you had any more thoughts about these features? Missing anything?
I've got it on my wall at the moment, and what I'm doing is every time cutting and pasting and doing actual tasks, just doing a kind of mental check, see if there's anything that's missing, and I can't find anything.
Okay. Did you get a chance to read this doc I sent over?
No, unfortunately, I did not. Sorry.
Okay, so here's just sort of expanding out what each one of those pieces means. Take a look, see what you think.
Yeah, well, I did. I've got a meeting bot up with that conversation that does basically the same thing.
So we need to we need to then find a way to sort of describe these features on a roadmap using a bot. I don't know how right now, but it doesn't seem too hard. It's just I'd really like to get to the point of being able to do reporting or status update, because when everyone's like, where are you at? And we're like, here. That's sort of what we want, I think.
Yeah, I can put a bit of bot time into that. I'm saying definitely these features really just fell out of meeting bot. So I've also got project bot, which I committed I think last night, which builds up well, effectively a timeline again of various things. I've not fed this through project bot yet. It's generalized project bot, but
Okay.
we'll see.
Okay. And lastly, this was the naming system I came up with for the testing framework. I'm sorry I still have not made much meaningful progress on the testing framework. It's felt like it was a jumble of all sorts of other things happening this week, including being deathly ill. But
yeah, we talked about that last time. It's cool.
No, I renamed this. So I called that bit the registry. That's the test registry. The agent that talks with the user is called the requester because it requests test controller instances and it uses the controllers to instantiate file runners and case runners. And that, I think, is all that we need for the system. And that's it from...
I like the names.
Cool, that's the first. That's cool. Great. Excellent. So that's all for me, actually.
Cool. All right. What time? Right. I've got about 35 minutes. What time? How long have you got?
I got about the same.
Okay. Right. Why is my handset not working? Come on. For God's sake. What's going on?
What the fuck?
Right.
Hey.
So, what I've done is, so taking the definitions which are updated and committed under Dreamcatcher definitions, and created from that through the ERD creator, Dreamcatcher bot, which has created this ERD. This ERD currently, interesting enough, it needed a bit of backwards and forwards to get right. I'll go into that later. So there's the first thing that struck me in the process is previously I was saying that ERD is a great way of seeing, what goes to what, but quite quickly the complexity gets to the point where you're having to trace through individual topics. It's already at the state where it's like,
Right.
is this all right? Is this correct? Is it complete?
Can you box them? Like, you know how in a flowchart you can do a subgraph. Can you do a subgraph of an ERD?
Yeah, I'm sure you can actually. I've not asked for that. I'll probably ask for it now. Which one is it? Yep, I'll just let me find out. Pros, gobs, boxes around similar entities and ERD. Okay, yes, what I was thinking about is actually nesting the ERD or having different views on it a bit.
Yeah, so you can't do that with
now,
the language of Markdown, but you're just talking about in general just boxing it. Well, right, so that
I only want to talk about, for example, dispersal events. I only want to talk about contributions and so on.
right. So you probably, that seems easy enough to do is just layers. So you're like, one entity can inside of it be a whole nother ERD.
Yeah, I see no problem with that. So I've not done that yet, but it was quite interesting how quickly, even just through NL saying, okay, correct this, correct that, that it gets. Oops. Oh, I was adding the style again. I've told you not to do that.
All right, so what kinds of issues have you had with the concepts or the entities with the Dreamcatcher? What sort of weird oddities have popped up?
Not oddities, but I guess opportunities. And so, right, okay, so let's just assume that ERD that I just showed you here is a representation. It's not correct yet, but it's pretty close, pretty damn close, and it's gone through a number of iterations. Now, so what I did was I put that through another bot, which was aimed at creating tests, and those tests defined are asset defined as flowchart. I think this is the. I think this has got legs. So what we've got here is using just the ERD to give a scenario in terms, or a generalized terms. It doesn't say what an innovation is, who the consumer is, whatever, but it's, for example, consumer uses innovation, triggers pricing assessment, pricing GDP calculates price, trigger dispersal event, contributions are paid, boom. And this was generated. I didn't do any of this. Well, built the bot, but what then was quite interesting is I put that in that flowchart as a definition of the tests into creating a test in the format that we need. Now, that looked pretty interesting to me. I don't know if you agree, but what we've got here is a number of tests, number of subtests. Each have got the expectations at each point, so can fail individually or collectively, because we've got the final expectations. And that was generated by a combination of the flowchart of the thing you're testing. Hey man, personal space.
Sorry. Well, you're awful close too. I mean,
that was generated just with the combination of ERDs and, well, putting the ERDs through a test bot saying, okay, tell me who the entities are, give me a list of the possible interactions between the entities, and I go out to, I think, prompt you to like go out to 4, and then generate a flowchart. Look at the flowchart was, where is it? Was really helpful. Except when it started to add in really weird colors. Yeah, consider carefully the ERD in every step needed, including, for example, adding a pricing bot. Think carefully and try again. So consider the ERD as the source of truth. Create me a flow that expresses a potential test. Then create the test. Now, the interesting thing is, once we've got it as a test as opposed to a flow, we can do iterations, as in, okay, so different consumers.
So
different,
what was the point of the ERD in this process?
The ERD is the thing that defines what you're testing. It's just like, this is what we're testing.
Right, and then the workflow was used to show how you. So, like, the ERD is not enough rules to define the workflow. The workflow is uses the ERD relationships and manipulates them in a specific order, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The ERD constrains what the system can do, but not
Right.
how it's used.
Right, because the ERD, you could do things all. There's no workflows constraining what you can do. It's just what are the entities, how does the data relate. It doesn't say about what are the workflows, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so workflows is therefore a critical component of a delivered system, is to have the workflow defined. And what you're saying you've got here is that when you generated the workflow, you were able to auto-generate tests that try to break the workflow?
Yes.
Or is it that they try to exercise the workflow?
No, they don't try and break the workflow.
They try and use it.
They try and use it.
And then they verify at the end that the ERD, the relationships and entities are correct, as well as the expected outcome of the workflow is correct as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's the ERD is the source of truth, and there's lots of workflows that you could go through, and again, quite large. So there's lots of things you could do with this thing, but it is complete and correct. Let's just say,
right? Because there's a large number of workflows that you could use any given ERD inside of, but the system is defined by what workflows we allow.
Yeah.
And then the tests you made were just using the workflow and checking the expectations, but it seems trivial to produce tests that try to break it where the expectation is that it didn't break.
Yeah.
And then once you have those tests, what's good about that is it runs in the test framework, and the test framework can do variations, which means that it can mimic a human doing the processes very differently, right?
Yeah, precisely. So the cool thing about this, in my mind, is we remain that the system is the ERD. That's the thing that can never. That's the thing we're testing. So we've grounded that. Now with that ERD and this test bots, test generator, you can get that to ingest the ERD and saying, given the ERD is the thing we're testing, let's generate some tests as flow diagrams. And then from those flow diagrams, we can talk about coverage as well, but also we can talk about variations using that basic flow. And we can also talk about adding Noid and monkey pool, cable pools into it, Chaos Monkey. But it seems that these steps I'm very comfortable with. You can go from ERD to test generator to a bunch of workflows, and then mess with the workflows generate tests, run the tests.
What was the first test generator that you mentioned? What does it test? You
This
mentioned
is a
test
general.
generator twice.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. This test generator is a general purpose system prompt that knows about the ERD diagram, rules and constraints.
Okay,
So,
so rules and constraints is encapsulated in the ERD, right?
yep,
Yep.
exactly.
So
I'll give
what
an
would be the
example.
point of testing that? Because without the workflows, you can move the system in disallowed ways.
Say that again. I didn't quite catch that.
Without the
Sounded very
workflows,
interesting.
you can move the system in disallowed ways. And so, what point is there to test the ERD if you can manipulate the system to be in a illegal state?
But the system is expressed through the ERD at runtime.
Right, but you're saying that workflows are an essential part of constraining the order in which things happen and the process that must be followed. The
No,
ERD simply covers the data structure.
no. Workflows are a way of testing the constraints that are set by the ERD. So the ERD says who can do what with each.
Okay,
And so
so
there's lots of maths through.
are we talking about different things in a workflow then? Where is the rule that says that um, after a customer is deleted, the inventory of bins needs to be updated?
Right. So that will be by ERD. I'm talking about the structure, which includes business rules. That would be a business rule. So that is an action to be carried out. It can't refer to any entities that aren't in the ERD, and it can't
Right.
request an action that the relationship between those two entities are not allowed to do. So,
Right, but isn't that a like that's a trivial example? Um, there could be a longer one. Are you without workflows? Your business rules are acting like workflows. Whereas I would have imagined that business rules were more like they weren't step by step procedures that you wanted to carry out. They were more like statements or invariants that are always true, right?
yes.
Yeah.
That second one. So this could be interesting. I might miss something here, but just to go through this. So a business rule is an assertion, and it's an atomic assertion.
Yeah, but a workflow
This person
is
can
going to
do
be
this.
yep,
This person can't do that.
yep.
And add that to the ERD
Mm-hmm.
and make that coherent in itself, and then you should have a system. Now, the workflows is you could have any number of loops. You could go around and pull anything in, but the workflow is an expression of one way that the ERD plus permissions plus business rules allows or should allow.
Yeah, I'm saying that it's different though, because if you're saying that the workflow is just entirely derived from the ERD plus permissions plus business rules, then that means we're misusing workflows because
Okay, let's delve into that because workflows are. Maybe I'm using the wrong terminology, but at the moment is an intermediate step for generating well-formed tests.
yeah, so that's not how I see it. I see a workflow as at the same level of importance as the ERD because defining procedures inside a company are every bit as important as defining the entities and relationships within that company.
So you're saying actually what we should think about is having defined the ERD. Perhaps that's the keystone.
The data structure.
Yeah, and then you put in the workflows and saying this is what we expect to happen.
Workflows are procedures. These are the steps you must do to get something done.
We get that self-coherence.
Right, because it's only allowed to use the ERD as the workflow can only manipulate the ERD using the rules set out in the ERD. But the reason why I'm saying workflows are important is because, yes, it is true that you could define an arbitrary workflow in the business rules, but that's not helping to present those things to a human. That's not
So
how.
there's a bit of a cycle emerging here, isn't there? So as I've just shown, you can take an ERD and then create an arbitrary large number of workflows. It's
That are
kind of
all
useful
valid,
because
that are all
then,
valid
yeah,
within the ERD, right?
that's right. It should
Yeah,
be valid at runtime.
yeah.
Yeah,
And you were trying to constrain that by using business rules to dictate what were the allowed workflows. And I'm saying, why not?
uh, not quite. Sorry, finish your thought though. But there's a nuance there.
I'm saying that you should use the workflows as a sophisticated form of business rule. The business rules at the ERD level are meant to be
I think
assertions
it's
that are
got better.
always true.
I think
The
it's got better. Yeah.
the statements about the system that are just at every point in time they're true. The ERD
Yes.
is about relationships and entities that at every point in time are true. But workflows are about the steps you go through to manipulate those things that are always true in ways that define the procedures of the company.
I think you're onto something here. The business rules are intended to be assertions. You can do this, you can do that, etc.
Yeah,
And it can include nuance. You should do this, or you
right,
could do that,
right.
which is all fine and well. The loop is shown that given something that is at least self-coherent and bootstrapping mode that has that. I'll give you an example. You can then prompt this test. Well, maybe misnamed now, test generator. Let's say workflow generator. Is that the right one? In order to allow NL, yes, it's so. For example, this is Dreamcatcher. So, generate the
Awfully
flow
close there,
for.
buddy. Awfully close.
Well, back off then, man.
I was
For
actually here.
contributor to I don't know, submit stock, have that stock escrowed by a pre-buyer, then completed by the second contributor. Yeah, damn it. I'm not very shit at typing usually, just contributor and paid out. Okay, right. There's a scenario. Okay, a complex scenario. Now I don't know whether this will do it. Let's find out. What I'd expect is now we've got something can feed back in. So given the ERD, we can test the ERD by asking who's going to be using it to say, right, tell me a reasonable scenario. What do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right, so you should be able to take the scenario, generate a workflow, and then generate tests against it.
right,
And it's almost like the way to test a workflow is a little bit more involved than just the pure prompt testing. Like it needs to be a dedicated way of testing a workflow.
absolutely.
Like it
Absolutely.
needs to
I mean,
be tested at each step.
yeah. So
Hey, this looks cool.
yeah. So I've put in something as the guy who's going to be using it. It's like that's the sort of thing I want to do. It's like, all right, now we've got workflow. Now, if you given that, say generate the test based on that flow, and now we've got in the format that we're talking about expectations set up and that kind of thing. We've got tests. It's like, okay, have a look at is that what you meant? That flow? Fine. Now, but what you're adding to it is then once you're happy with the flow, saying, yes, that works, then using that to reinforce the ERD in terms of constraining it, saying this is a permissible workflow and we can keep it quite high level because it's NL, to this is escrow established, someone knows what escrow is because we defined it, some contributor resolve the stocks and so on. We can put those as it's almost like examples of the workflow of using the system that gives further definition beyond simple business assertions, that recognizes the interaction of the entities, which I think is a good idea.
Yeah, it's also a human idea, like being able to show all the company procedures in flowchart form is essential, in my opinion.
Yeah, and there's probably also some virtuous feedback cycles in this. In that, if you were to say, well, the system should be able to do this in natural language workflow. Okay, workflow back into the ERD. Then the ERD creator checks permissions. It's like, no, that workflow can't work because
right. And then
doesn't have permission to do
if
that.
you pass the workflow into an agent that was being asked some questions, the workflow would explain how to do things and in a way that it could tell a human. It's like, well, how do I sign up a new customer? And it's like, new customer sign up workflow.
Oh,
you know,
that does it already actually, because I haven't constrained. Where's my pointer? Oh, I haven't constrained it to not speak off piece. So, what's your how? Am I even gonna? Oh, fuck's sake. Do I sign up a new customer? All right. I think I've been using client, but I should be able to figure it out. See what happens. Okay.
Does that match the workflow?
The flow. Think carefully, and you must ensure that you only use functions allowed in the ERD. I don't know, this is just a blind test. It's gone into more detail. Well, no, has it? No, because it knows that there's a customer record.
Either way, this looks pretty good. I don't know if it's correct or not, but either way, it seems like something that the bot can easily be constrained to do because it knows how to interpret a mermaid diagram. It knows how to interpret an ERD. Those two together, it's like, well, this is the system. Here's... It could talk about it arbitrarily, and those workflows should be summarized so that they've got natural language descriptions about them, for example.
Yeah, well, the natural language description would simply be the thing that caused that workflow to be generated.
Right. Do you think that the workflow, much like we have the business rules that generate or contribute to the generation of the ERD, should the workflows be generated from the natural language steps that were listed and conditions that were listed, so that they could start off as a bit of a jumble, like
that's interesting.
but then the bot converts it into a workflow so that it's cohesive. It's deduplicated, it's standardized.
I see.
Right, because it's really a way of grouping the business rules together, because some business rules try to define a process. Some business rules just define some assertions, which is they belong as business rules. Others try to
Yeah.
define a process, and if they define a process, they should be identified as such and treated specially or differently. They
Yeah.
should be grouped.
Yeah. I agree. So I would do that. Go back um, and create a bot, probably, or maybe a separate work. It'd be better as a separate workflow bot, wouldn't it? But with the same input. So create a bot creates the ERD
Mm,
and is given a whole bunch of information about the business. The workflow bot is given identical information about the business. And then if there's a clash, then there's an ambiguity, which we can highlight straight off.
right. So that workflow definition is probably the source of what can I do next at a particular step in the workflow, which means that we can generate buttons that represent the thing you can do next.
Yeah.
So that we
Yeah, the button bot. Yeah.
the button bot can work off the workflows because there's only so many things that you could do.
Because you can constrain it, saying once we've gone through the cycle of bootstrapping up, you're happy with workflows because you can see them going, yeah, nobody should be doing anything else other than this stack of workflows. And the system you're doing it on is the ERD. We know it's coherent.
Mm.
Therefore, if you're in this place in a particular workflow, here's the next thing that you're interested in. Yeah.
Okay, buddy, I'm gonna have to go.
Yeah, no worries. Just checking in on you that this is worth pursuing this kind of cyclic workflow piece.
I
It
think
seems
being able to capture
very nicely.
system procedures as a workflow is critical.
Yeah,
I don't
and
think that you can capture business procedures as business rules alone and it be meaningful to the human.
yeah.
Does
So
that
one of
sound
the
right?
things I've got, it does, and I agree. And interestingly enough, so one of the things we're going to do today is just do a quick reminder on UML v2 because they've got I think 7 ways of or different layers to describe the same business.
Mm-hmm.
And the ERD got so far. Workflows seems absolutely pivotal. I wonder what else we need. It might be there's something else in there in order to fully constrain, define, and control.
Yeah, that's
Just
true,
using
but
AI.
I actually doubt that you practically need anything more than the ERD and the workflows because we spent a lot of time on the workflow concept back in 2018, 2019, and we were we looked at a lot of products that were already out there that did workflow management for companies. Um, they were quite polished, but they weren't as big as we had expected they would be because they didn't. I think it still required a lot of thinking from the people to create the workflows, and that's the part that we're hoping to turn up with AI to overcome. Is like, well,
Well, interesting enough, reflects the experience of even. Well, okay, so it's not a simple thing, but it gets
it explodes real quick,
when
right?
debugging that one is like,
Yeah,
I'm going to have to think about, okay, so that
yeah,
does this,
yeah.
I'm thinking in workflows already, which is why
That's
we
like
do
a
workflows.
professional programmer's job. Like you
Yeah,
actually need a decent programmer to process all of that. So
exactly.
the way that we settled on running the workflows is that you have something that looks a lot like an inbox, where it's like there's the workflow itself, but then there's the running instances or executions of that workflow.
Yep.
Each one is its own entity somewhere, so it needs to be stored on the file system, and it records information like who started it, how long's it been running for, what step is it up to, and all those things. And so using the fact that it's on Git, we can use Git to walk back through how we can get a lot of that information for free, But
Yep.
my point is that in almost all business procedures, you need to be able to run concurrent iterations of a process. And so things like customer sign up, you should be able to do a query on all the customer signups for the day and be like, where's the abandoned ones? Like find the
Yeah.
abandoned
Yeah.
sign up
Yeah.
process.
And that'd be trivial to do because you'd feed in information saying, okay, so you are the flow bot system prompt. Here's the ERD we're talking about. Here's the flow that you're interested in. Then instantiate that, and then you get the dynamic data. And now you've got your instance that you can go back into, interrogate. You know, if you've just dropped it for 2 to 3 days, and go back to it and pick up where the flow is. All that kind of stuff. Okay, all right. Let me think about this a bit more. But my feeling is it's a really productive route to go down.
Yeah, I think so too.
And tests seem to be trivial to generate because we've given it the format and the flow and the ERD, so generate tests. In fact, the tests might, the actual individual tests, maybe that you could generate those by giving them the format of the test you want and the flow and an ERD, and on the fly just generate another test. It is. You could do that arbitrary times. You could store it if you want to rerun tests, which we talked about a couple of calls ago. You do anything, but you never actually have to type in anything in the tests because it all should fall.
I think that you will always want to add extra things in the test expectations because that's really what finesses the system.
But isn't it that in the natural language description of the thing that you're trying to do? So, for example, we could prompt it saying, I am a bad actor and I'm trying to fuck with the customer agent.
No, because when you want to make a change to the system, you probably want to start with adding an expectation that fails and then work backwards to modify the business rules, the ERD, and the workflows to make it pass. Like you kind of want to have your test first in a lot of ways, because otherwise it's too hard to know what you want and then go in and try change the top level components whilst you're looking downstream, hoping that the exact test you wanted is going to be eventually generated.
Yeah,
like,
and
that's
also the whole system we're trying to do is like you just give NL, describe the business.
Yeah, so in our expectations, I expect there's still a place where the human would definitely want to put something in. But yeah, look, I gotta bounce.
Yeah, no worries, man.
And I will see you later on.
Tomorrow. Yeah, it's Saturday apparently. Someone told me.
Apparently.
Yeah, nice one. Right, I'll keep on this and see you in 24 hours roughly.
Okay, sounds good, buddy. I'll see you then.
See you, man.
Bye.